So, yeah.
Okay, great. We want to
think
respect
so.
everybody's time. Okay, well, thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate you spending the next hour and a half with us out and time away from your work and families, and we hope that you get a lot out of this session. We'd like to start today. First of all, my name is Amelia Yak. I run the HawkSoft user group, and I work with Jennifer, and she runs all these webinars. I'm super grateful for her. We've done one every week for the last 6 weeks, and so it's been an awesome group session, and I appreciate her help and all of you for being here. The first thing I want to do is thank our sponsors who have supported this spring training session. So I'm going to go through those real quick because they do help support the HawkSoft user group. Those are Renew King Insurance Agent App, Donna by Aureus, Levitate, Pathway, Forge3, Rocket Referrals, Mythos Technology, Lightspeed, ePayments, Agency Revolution, Insure Zone, Encova, Suncoast, Ivans, Agave, Blue Jay Reviews, and Podium. So thanks to them for supporting the HawkSoft user group throughout the year. Okay, next slide. Most of you have probably already been to the HUG website, but if you haven't, I encourage you to do that. There's lots of great content, and specifically set up a username and password so you can get to the members only content where there's some templates and tools for you, as well as the Facebook page. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, we'd love to have you in there. There's more than 1,700 members on that page sharing information and advice and tips and tricks and all kinds of things. You can ask your peers anything and you'll get many questions answered. And lastly, the national conference is coming up in October. We're so excited about this, October 18th to the 19th at the Town and Country Resort in San Diego. It'll be a great two full packed days of content. And so we hope to see you there. It's super fun, great to see everybody. And if you have any questions about that or anything HUG related, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to now pass the time over to Jennifer to go over some housekeeping items.
Hey everybody, we're going to make sure that you've opened up your button that says participants so you can see everybody who is here. That's also where you'll be able to mute and unmute yourself. So once our speakers start speaking, I'd like everybody to put themselves on mute so we don't get that background noise. Also click on your chat button so that you can type in a question. We're going to be answering a lot of questions that were submitted ahead of time throughout, but then we'll be taking questions as they come in too. So you can post your question under the chat area. And then finally, we are recording this session. So if for any reason you have to step away, no worries, because we will be sending out an email with the link to the recorded webinar within 24 hours. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kenny for introductions.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Kenny. I'm HawkSoft's Director of Partner Integrations, but more importantly, I'm our HUG liaison. And it's a ghost in my machine today. So, I'll be moderating and serving as the voice of the audience today for much of the presentation. HUG was great at gathering some questions ahead of time. And so today we're going to be hearing from Paul Hawkins, President and CEO of HawkSoft, and Sean Hawkins, our Chief Product Officer. Jason Hansen unfortunately can't join us today due to a family matter, but these three individuals co-founded HawkSoft together in 1995, and they're the reason we're all here today. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Paul and Sean to kick this off.
Hey, thanks everybody. I just, I really miss, and I know Sean is going to say the same thing. We just really miss being in person. I'm glad I can actually have pictures of you guys up here. Otherwise, if I was just talking, like I've done some podcasts and things, and I'm just basically talking to the computer, and when that happens, the microphone sucks out my brains, and I just have a tough time with that. But I'm so thankful that you are here, and I'm thankful for our wonderful group of people that have put these sessions. This is the 7th session, and all the training that's gone on the last 6 weeks. I'm thankful for all the presenters, agents that have stepped up to help other agents to really become all you can be. because that's our goal as a group, to help each other thrive and grow. And that's our wish for you, and that's for my wish for my employees and everybody in our sphere of influence. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to answering your questions and helping you do what you need to do.
Yeah, on that note, Paul, it's interesting. I'm not sure if I'm more nervous talking to my computer or if I was in the front of a group of people. This is an interesting experience. And I think many of us have gone through changes over the last year as we have all adapted to the new norm with COVID. And we probably all spent a lot more time talking at our computer screens than we would like. So I just echo that sentiment. I miss being with you guys in person and having those personal relationships and talking about what your current struggles are. And I'm excited to talk about where we're going today. It'll be a fun ride. We're looking forward to your questions, and we're supposed to be an hour and a half. If it ends in an hour, that's okay too.
So, again, thanks to Hug for gathering a bunch of questions up front, and we're going to tackle the questions that were submitted in advance, because that way we can kind of give you a really in-depth answer to those questions. But as we go through this, please do put comments in the chat. I'll be watching and taking notes. If you see me look down, I promise I'm not tweeting or anything. I'm taking notes. And so we got some questions up front, and a lot of them focused on one thing. We got a lot of questions about HawkSoft Cloud. So we're just going to dive in, and that's where we're going to start. I want to say thank you to Sean, Jeff, Stephen, Ed, Corey, and Jackie for asking questions about HawkSoft Cloud, the possibilities of a web-based HawkSoft, the future of the cloud-based HawkSoft management system. So each of those questions pointed to this central topic, and we're going to talk about HawkSoft Cloud and HawkSoft 6. And so with that, I'm going to pass it to Sean.
Awesome. The tough questions come first, don't they? Actually, I'd like to just recognize an individual that's on the call with us today, Matt Amon. He's actually our lead software architect, and he's joining us today. We may or may not hear from him, depending on if you guys ask questions that I can't answer. I'll revert to him. But I'm excited to talk a little bit about HawkSoft Cloud. We've been talking about this for some time, and we're going to continue talking about it today and kind of where we're at. So first off, HawkSoft Cloud, we'll actually be version 6. So HawkSoft version 6, it's really the next evolution of the HawkSoft product, where we take the HawkSoft data and your agency data, and it becomes entirely hosted in the cloud. Versus today, many of you guys either have a local server or you're using one of our online hosting providers to host not only the application, but also the data. And so this is a complete paradigm shift where that data is actually hosted completely in the cloud and served to your application running on your native desktop. This is not the first time we've talked about this, and to iterate this, this process is not a sprint; it's a marathon. It's not something that just happens overnight, but it's taken a long time, and we're making significant progress on that. It's been interesting as I've reflected back. HawkSoft just celebrated its 25th anniversary this last year, which is a huge, for any company, is a huge milestone. And again, we're grateful for each of you for being on that journey with us. But as I've reflected back, the management system really started out back in about 1998 is when the actual programming of it started. Things were different then. Technology was different. Development tools were different. The insurance industry was different. And of course, over the years, that has changed. And not only has those things changed, but the pace of those things have changed and continually change. It's just amazing to watch how quickly technology is changing from month to month these days, it seems like. We originally started out in DOS and went to Windows. And that was a huge paradigm shift for us, but the program was a whole lot smaller. It didn't do that much back then. That was around 2001. This shift to the cloud is really a crucial turning point for HawkSoft and HawkSoft's evolution. It's a shift again where we take this platform where it's housed, the data is housed today, and change it so the data is housed entirely in the cloud. And that's equivalent to, and I've said this before, some of you guys probably heard this, it's equivalent to literally taking an airplane, flying an airplane, and rebuilding it while you're flying it without disrupting the passengers on board. If we were literally to start from scratch and not do any more work on the existing product and literally start from scratch, it probably would have been an easier process. But then that transition for you guys would be a lot harder. That transition to that new product would be harder. And quite frankly, it would be a lot leaner product because we'd be starting from scratch. And there's a lot of things that are in that product today that you guys are use every day. The shortcuts and the workflows that you guys are very familiar with that you would lose if we went down that route, which is why we've been incrementally changing it. And you've seen that over the last couple of years where we've incrementally changed the plane, if you will, one feature at a time. As we've added on Agent Portal, the new search experience, cloud authentication, we brought in vendors and the vendor API so we can support third-party vendors. But again, this has been a process. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. But something that we came to the realization this year is that we maybe have not been as transparent with you guys as we need to be along this journey, where we're at the journey. And so marketing, and unfortunately, we're not ready to roll it out today to show you today, but marketing is putting together a landing page on our website where you'll be able to see where we're at in that journey. You'll be able to see the milestones and be able to see the things we've worked on. And we'll show you some of those things in a little bit as well. Some of the things that are really exciting. But be able to, you'll be able to refer back to this page and see the progress on this journey for us.
So Sean,
yes,
a quick question for you. When we talk about, the metaphor of HawkSoft, like HawkSoft Cloud and HawkSoft 6 as rebuilding an airplane, are we talking about like a two-seater Cessna or a large airplane? Because I think that also helps illustrate, what type of plane do you see HawkSoft as?
That is an interesting question. It started out as a one-seater or two-seater Cessna, and it's evolved into it seems like a 747 these days. It's such a huge, deep program, and that consequently is a huge undertaking to take something that has 23 years worth of evolution to it and change it, completely rip out the guts of it and change it. And it's just a huge undertaking. That's a great way of looking at it, Kenny. So go ahead.
I was going to ask, what is HawkSoft 6?
So HawkSoft 6. So, and I've alluded to it a little bit, but we'll go into a little more detail. So HawkSoft 6, first off, it is a reimagination of the HawkSoft client management system that you already know and love. It's got the power, the intuitiveness, the effectiveness, and the same workflows, most of the same workflows that you already use today. The difference is that it's powered by the cloud. So instead of relying on your local networks and instead of relying on a third-party host and being able to serve and having to serve that application from that third-party host using parallels, that goes away. So it really combines the desktop app, the power of the desktop with the convenience of cloud-based data. And so what does that really mean? It looks more like a hybrid approach. And if you look at, say, Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office in general, Microsoft Outlook, this is a great example of what that vision is, where you've got a desktop app like Microsoft Word that's a fully featured, comprehensive tool, but you also have a light version, a slimmed down version for a browser, where you're able to access basic features and you're able to work with your data in a browser. Over time, that will shift, and we're seeing that with Microsoft Office today, Word today, where more and more the browser base is becoming more and more feature rich, but it still has a long ways to go before it reaches that where the desktop is today. And so our vision is very similar to that, where it's a hybrid approach, and Yeah. Anyway, that's what our vision is, and you'll see some of that in a few minutes. We'll show you some demos of what that looks like, which we're excited about. So when we say cloud-based, I love the word cloud because it's so nebulous. It's and pun is definitely intended there. So really, what is cloud-based? It's really where we're able to store your agency's data to be stored in the HawkSoft cloud, which is actually backed by Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure is one of the leading cloud providers in the world, along with, you've probably heard of Amazon Web Services or AWS. Microsoft Azure is the other big player in that space. And so we chose Microsoft Azure to host the HawkSoft cloud, where again, your data will be placed and stored. And with that, you'll be able to access that again through a native desktop application or through a browser-based experiences for certain certain features. And we'll go into what some of those features are. And I hate to reiterate, I'm going to reiterate some of these benefits, but one of those benefits is it eliminates the need for that local server or for using a Parallels client to host your application. That both of those things go away. It facilitates faster and more reliable connectivity. Right now, if you're using our hosting product, the application is being served through a middleware client, if you will. And if you have a hiccup in your internet, it's not a good experience. You're with a black screen, you have to relog back in or whatever. Those things go away with this new approach. It also provides enhanced data security. And that's something that we feel very strongly about, especially as we are changing to house your data in the cloud where it's being delivered, in a sense, from the internet. Before that, many of you guys had your local networks, and data security was, well, as long as your local network's secure, your data's secure. But as that data moves out and it's accessible through the cloud, that becomes our responsibility to ensure that that data is secure, that it does not get out in the wild, that it is your data and stays your data. And with that, HawkSoft has undertaken a huge endeavor this year to become what's called SOC 2 certified. And what that is it's a process where we look at all of our processes within development, within IT, within product support, within all of our teams, and we make sure that we're looking at from a data security standpoint to ensure that the data and the processes around data remain secure. And so that's a huge undertaking that HawkSoft's taking on right now. Another benefit is that the data is backed up in the cloud. And so for those that are locally hosted today, you're responsible for your own backups. If you're in our HawkSoft Online product, obviously they do the backup for you. But with this new paradigm of HawkSoft Cloud, HawkSoft 6, that data will be backed up for you, and will not be responsible for ensuring those backups. Not saying you can't do a backup, but that you won't be able, that you won't have to do a backup. And then obviously with that becomes faster innovation of new features. And this is something that, admittedly, it feels, going back to Kenny, your analogy about how big is that airplane. Back in the day when we were at Cessna, we were adding features left and right. I mean, it was so easy because it was so easy to do that. But as we're having to rebuild this paradigm, it's that innovation seems like it's slowed down a little bit. As we get to this, and you'll see these new features are rolling out, there's a lot of innovation in these new features that we'll be rolling out. But with them comes the ability to go back to that faster innovation of new features. And that's something we're very excited about. What am I missing?
So, we'll have this hybrid approach where data is in the cloud, but what about the experience of using HawkSoft on the desktop?
So yeah, the desktop app experience becomes the desktop. There'll still be a native desktop application for some and for most of your application. There will be a lot of stuff that it will launch out to a browser. I mean, actually, we'll see some demos of that in a few minutes as we look at some of the new features. But that native app will be installed on your Office PC or laptop. And again, you've got the same workflows and keyboard shortcuts that you already know and love today. The difference is that it's going to be a much smaller footprint because it's not having to do as much from on the disk standpoint, but also because of not having the need for the on-prem server or the remote access middleware layer. However, many of those features will also be available through a web browser and moving forward, and we'll be able to see some of that.
I think it's important, Sean, to we talk about the hybrid, and to so that they understand that this is a gradual change. More and more and more of the program will change over to browser-based. Right now, it's going to be a hybrid, but that's part of the process of changing those out as we go. Matt Amon describes that like we're building the plane while we're flying it, and it's a good analogy, and it's can be painful but it's exciting at the same time.
So part of that is I just want to say thank you to you guys for going through this journey with us because we recognize that we are getting a lot of questions. Where are we at in this journey? Why what's taking so long? When will it be done? And I just want to say thank you to each of you for going through this journey with us as we again do this monumental task of changing HawkSoft CMS as we know it today into a complete new paradigm and evolve to this whole new platform of the cloud. With that, we've got some, and I'm not sure this is where we're at, Kenny, but we've got some.
Momentarily. I do have a question, and you asked me to put it this way, so Matt can't come find me with a pitchfork. So we hear this a lot. Why is this taking so long?
So why is this taking so long? And part of that.
I am trying to get in touch with Jeremy Short regarding an indication.
Yeah, so why is this taking so long?
So why is this taking so long? And part of this is the fact that we are having to rebuild a product that has been evolving for 23 years. It is a very deep product. It'd be so much easier if we were quite frankly, for an InsureTech startup where we could do a very thin slice of something and roll it out for a feature, but it's not. It's very deep. It's got a lot of feature and functionality in it that takes a long time to keep the same parity and make it cloud-based. Because we do want to make sure that you have the same or similar experience or even be able to do more with it than you could before. The other option was we could slim it way down and make it feature poor, if you will, and that's not what you guys want. You guys want something more feature rich than it even is today. So that's really why. It's also going back to that when, in fact, I still do a lot of coding, and I was actually changing out some code that was written back in 2003. Coding practices and tools have changed greatly since 2003. And I look at the code and I go, oh my land, this is messy. But that's because we're looking at it from today's standards versus 2003 standards. Things have changed. And so we're having to bring a lot of that code up to today, present day standards. And that's it's an undertaking.
We have two questions from the audience relevant to this topic before we move on. The first one comes from Rod, and he asks, will we be able to have our server based with 6.0? So will local installations of HawkSoft still be a thing when we fully roll out HawkSoft 6? So
server based, shorter answer is 6. HawkSoft 6 will be is a cloud-based product. And part of that is part of it is where the industry is going. Part of it is where development tools are moving. It is becoming harder and harder to find even, they're not updating tools for pure desktop-based and local network-based stuff. Those tools are not being updated anymore. The cloud, everything is moving to the cloud, and that's the direction it's moving. in addition, we're getting a lot of pushback from a lot of our customers who are wanting to get their, to have more of a cloud-based experience. There's things that we simply can't do or cannot do as fast in a desktop, in the local network environment. Paul?
Sean, I think the other thing is that we can't do both.
Right.
If this journey would take twice as long if we tried to support both, and the future is in the cloud, and we can't do both. So yeah, at some point, version 5, you can still be on your local server. When you move to 6, no, can't. We just can't do that.
And then we have a question from Steven, good friend of HawkSoft. Once HawkSoft 6 is rolled out to everyone, will we be able to have two-way integration with our partners?
So that is really one of the most exciting things. I'm actually going to turn time over to Matt, if you would, to speak to that.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So one of the things that's, there's always give and take with everything. And while 6 will be a departure for a number of agencies, what it allows us to do is open up a wealth of opportunities that we just haven't had in the past. One of the things that's really great about the direction that we're moving is HawkSoft's always been committed to the idea of integrating. And downloads is a great example of an area that HawkSoft has shined. Downloads are incredibly complicated, but it's integration, and they were at the forefront of that. What we're trying to do is move towards an ecosystem where you as an agency can pick and choose one day in the future, pick and choose the different suppliers or partners that you might integrate with, and then they can plug into our ecosystem. So the idea of us being able to move HawkSoft, not just as a closed CMS, but to an open platform that allows for even more selectivity. It also would open up the ability for innovation and move from a model where you're having to come to us to ask for everything that you want and need. What we want to be able to do is just enable and empower you and make it easy for you to come into HawkSoft, and if you decide to leave HawkSoft. But really keep that focus on something that's been at the forefront of HawkSoft since its inception, which is you, the customer. So we have started that strategy with our vendor integration. We've been working with them to understand kind of what their wants and needs are. And I know what my wants and needs are for the platform. I want anybody to be able to push in a piece of information however they would like to. I want agencies that have the means to be able to say, hey, I would like to start creating clients. I want to start creating logs. I want to push up any kind of information and work off of whatever tools that make sense to me. So yes, we're really focused on being able to open it up, and that's at the forefront of what 6 is all about.
And that goes back to one of the questions is can 6 be a local network installation? And that's one of the fundamental reasons why we're not able to do that. Is because in order to get that two-way integration where vendors will be able to allow vendors to be able to push log notes or push things into the system, we can't do that, support that on a local network. But in the cloud we can. And that's something that really opens up and we're very excited about that, being able to do that. So
I want to move us on to the next section, but we have one more question about the impact of HawkSoft 6 on pricing. This comes from Rob as well. What will it do to the cost of the system if we can't have a local installation? Because right now, HSO is generally more expensive than a local installation.
Yeah, so can we, that's a great question. Can we turn off the recording and have a frank conversation?
The idea here, guys, is that the HSO parallel system is very expensive, and that expense, a lot of that expense is going to go away. We're going to be able to save money by going to Azure, and so we're looking at the fact that we're hoping that when we finally get this baked, if you will, that the price will actually go down for online. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of any management system lowering their price, but that's the plan right now, as long as something doesn't blow us out of the water and we ended up with a gotcha. But yeah, but it's still going to be more expensive than local. Yes, that's because you don't have to have a server anymore. You don't have to have your techs working on the servers and stuff like that. You don't have to upgrade every 4 or 5 years. We're taking care of that for you. So.
Thank you. So now that we have the stage set for HawkSoft Cloud and HawkSoft 6 and what it means for the future of HawkSoft development, it gives us a really good segue into a question from Karen, who I know is on the call and is a longtime friend of HawkSoft. What are agents going to be most excited about that HawkSoft is working on and will launch in the next year? We're going to tackle this with some actual videos of features that are in development right now. I do need to stress that the videos represent pre-alpha development. The workflows and designs will change prior to full release. So it was really important to us that we show you that these aren't just theoretical setups. These aren't just mock-ups. These are real workflows built into HawkSoft and built on the cloud platform. But please know that the videos you're seeing, they will likely change. They're not final products. And the videos that you'll see are going to be kind of background to what Sean and Paul are going to talk about. So we're not going to discuss the workflow going on. You'll just be able to see that they function while we explain the bigger picture.
Before you get to that demo, Kenny, I just want to kind of talk very briefly what you're going to see before we get there. So some of the features that we're going to be showing, and we've got teams that are actively working on every one of these at this point. And one of those is a complete rework of accounting, completely in the cloud, in a browser, quite frankly. The complete rework of agency setup and user management, redoing reporting, including agency intelligence, sales retention, advanced reporting, activity report, all of those. The word suspenses is going to be removed from HawkSoft vocabulary and be replaced with tasks. And that's, a lot of people don't understand even what a suspense is until they start using HawkSoft. Now we force that vocabulary on you guys. And so anyway, the idea is that tasks will be completely being revamped. And we're going to see demos of some of these items right now. So if you want, Kenny, we can jump into that. So the first one we're going to look at here is HawkSoft accounting. Part of this is that we have redesigned HawkSoft accounting from the ground up. It is all of the workflows that are there today are completely gone. And part of that is because we've heard that we've tried to address a lot of the pain points that you guys have had over the years with our HawkSoft accounting. With that, part of that is the fact that we've redone, well, you see that, go ahead and hit play there, Kenny, is that playing?
There we go, I have to maintain focus on it, that's my bad.
Awesome. So one of the things that as you go to setup, you'll see right here, we've got a lot of the setup piece of it is already done, where you can add in your general ledger accounts. You can add in your line item templates, your line item descriptions. A lot of that stuff comes over from the same paradigm from what you're used to today, but it's being done through a web interface. As you go to take a payment, for instance, or does it take a payment next? I don't remember.
Creating an invoice.
Creates an invoice. So again, you go to create an invoice and you'll see that it's in the desktop app, but it's actually launching a window. What you're not seeing is that this window is actually a web-based window. That down the road, we'll actually be able to get to the same screens through a browser because this is actually launching a browser is what it's doing. It's just hiding the URL, the URL line is what it's hiding. Some of the benefits of the new HawkSoft, what we call cloud accounting, is first off that it is browser-based, and we'll be able to iterate on it fairly quickly in that browser-based experience. And because it's that, we'll be able to get, as I said earlier, we'll be able to get to it through a browser in the future, in the short future. But part of that is we've also streamlined a lot of and simplified a lot of the workflows. For those that do direct and agency bill, right now, if you try to create an invoice or take a payment, if it's agency bill, you do it one way, and if it's direct bill, you do it another way. And sometimes we've solidified those into one way of doing it. The new paradigm, there is only one way of doing it. All invoices, whether they're direct bill or agency bill, are done exactly the same way. And Ken Shield, one of our product owners, has spent probably thousands of hours working with different groups to figure out what those workflows need to be to make sure that that's a seamless process. Another one of those issues is voiding. And right now, if you try voiding, a payment has been taken against the invoice and you realize the invoice is wrong, that voiding process is a pain. That has been hugely simplified in the new HawkSoft accounting or cloud accounting. So it's a single workflow for avoiding those things. We now have a true general ledger accounting. And with that, being able to create draft invoices that are completely editable ahead of time. The other shift, and we're not really, we're still working on what that means to existing agencies, is the shift of the integration with QuickBooks. Today, we send everything over as general journals. In the future, we'll be able to send them over as invoices and credit memos and payments against them, so that your QuickBooks will actually match what you're seeing in HawkSoft, and be able to see a one-to-one comparison, which is exciting.
So I have a tangentially related question. Matt's doing a great job of answering some technical questions in the chat. We should bring him along to more of these. Someone asked, Steve asked, will we still need QuickBooks to do the final work? HawkSoft traditionally has done the trust accounting side where it collects the information and we pass it to QuickBooks to complete those transactions and do the ledger, because we don't have quote unquote integrated accounting. Is that still going to be the workflow?
So we have chosen QuickBooks as our accounting package for doing everything that's not trust accounting. Part of that is because they integrate with all the banks. They integrate with a lot of the payroll services. They do all these integrations today that we would have to replicate all of that in order to, if we brought that into, or you simply wouldn't get those features. And so with that, the HawkSoft accounting is still doing trust accounting, is still the trust accounting piece of it. With QuickBooks, we're actually looking at possibly using another vendor as well, being able to use QuickBooks or another vendor. So I know some of the agencies, when they get too large, QuickBooks does not work for them. And that's something that we're looking into, is bringing on another vendor for those larger agencies, another accounting vendor. So that's something that we're looking into. But yes, in answer to that.
Excellent. So next up, we have changes to settings and setup. Do you want to cue that up before we run the video?
No, just go ahead and cue it up. We'll just
cool.
go through it. So
this one's a long one, so.
Part of a setup is with the users and agency management stuff. Some of the stuff, once you guys had it set up, you haven't touched it again or almost never tweak it. There's other things though that when you add users, and some of these larger agencies are adding users, removing users frequently. And it looks like your video is locked up again, Kenny.
Shoot, sorry. I'm trying to answer a question. There we go.
So part of this is that we've redone this is the accounting setup is on the next page. Sorry.
Oh, my bad. That one. Okay.
Let's see here. Okay, beautiful. So part of this is the fact that we've redone the user management and the agency setup, so that it's, again, it's cloud, it's not cloud, it's browser based. It's all cloud based, but it's browser based. And part of that is that these large agencies that are constantly adding or removing users, right now it's a pain to load that user list. If you've got a significant number of users, that user list comes up very slowly today. And that's something that is a complete different paradigm shift with the new way of doing user management in the browser or web-based. That will be able to support very large agencies, be able to add and remove users very easily. That workflow has been greatly simplified. In addition, we've looked at a lot of the settings that are more technically worded, that mean something to us, but they don't mean anything to you guys as insurance agencies. And so we've really taken those and worded them and revamped them so they make a lot more sense. So when you look at a setting, you go, oh, I know what that is. So that's going to be a paradigm shift. But again, it's there to support being able to support users in the cloud so that we can have browser-based experiences, or even down the road, mobile experiences where we're needing to be able to access that user information as needed. So, so some of the benefits, I'm just looking at some of the benefits of this, and I think I've already touched on some of them, but a lot of stuff has been simplified. The multi-office settings have been simplified. Agency onboarding has been streamlined. It's a lot easier to onboard an agency through this process now. And even be able to search for, when you're in there, being able to search for users. So again, if you're in a long list, you can be able to very quickly type in, I want to see this user, or I want to see all the users in this office, and be able to get that list very, very easily. And all of these things right now, this is actually, again, this is all being, is live right now. This piece is, it's just not rolled out to you guys yet.
Yeah. I was going to type this in the chat, but I want to let the video keep running. There's a lot of great questions in the chat about accounting. I'm going to defer on answering most of them because Ken Shiel, our product owner in accounting, has done amazing work on the system, and the developers and the other product owners that have assisted have done amazing work, and I don't want to get any of it wrong. So I would love to answer a lot of these in-depth questions, and Matt has done some great answers to those, but I'm going to defer, and we will have a lot more about accounting in the future to bring people up to speed. Please be assured that Sean was not exaggerating when he said that Ken has put thousands of hours into the redesign of the system. It's been a project that we've been working on for years, and we've been collecting feedback on for years. So I wish I could answer all these questions, but we're just gonna, and I don't mean to dismiss a lot of them, but I don't feel like I can give the best answers in chat, and so we're going to defer until a later date on a lot of these accounting questions.
And I know part of this is that there's going to be some QAs coming out about this and a lot of training coming out, because there's going to need to be a lot of training for your agencies as you switch to this, bring this on. This is going to be you know, a lot of the program is going to remain exactly the way it is, but certain aspects of an accounting is one of those that it's going to be a different experience than you're used to today, and so there's going to have to be some training on it. Another thing that I forgot to mention on there, switching back to user management, kind of talking about accounting, but the ability to bulk edit commission bases. Right now, if you change your commission base, you've got to go and edit one user at a time, and now you'll be able to bulk make changes to users. Same with permissions, being able to, the permission workflow has changed greatly. So if you've got a lot of users, sometimes it's a pain to change permissions as you're going across users. So that's been simplified.
Yeah, and if I can weigh in real quick, one of the things I'd like to emphasize is that one of the big feedbacks, particularly in accounting, is the number of clicks to do things. A lot of our focus with everything that we're doing right now is first and foremost on usability. It's the idea that you're moving to a new paradigm, and we want to make sure that we take you there as seamlessly as possible. The experience should be consistent with the positives, and then get better in all the areas that we can. And accounting, the focus has really been on reducing complexity, reducing the time it takes to do things, and really putting a lot of information in front of you, which is one of the areas that CMS is good at, but reducing the number of steps required to get from point A to point B. So, you know, there's a lot of love and care, and a lot of strong opinions that really help influence the direction of some of the things that we're reworking. So even though they might feel different, understand that our first consideration is always usability.
Excellent. So this gives us some, we have one more thing we want to talk about in terms of being able to show you something, but I want to take a break to, we got two questions about automation that I think are really important to ask. Shannon asked us, can you please develop a tool to automatically generate suspenses for upcoming renewals? And then we also got a question from Sean asking, do you plan on adding automation to the management system, or should we plan on staying with third-party vendors? So this is a perfect opportunity for us to talk about automated tasks and communications. which I'm going to pass over to Paul to discuss while we show you a video that displays Task Center in the background.
Yeah, this has been my dream for years to automate these things. Right now, you have to, if you want to set up a task or a suspense, as we call it, to start the renewal process, 90 days before renewal of a commercial policy, for instance, you've got to remember to do that. And as we set up these automated tasks, you're going to be able to set up triggers for a certain number of days after something, certain number of days before something happens, whether it's a status change or a renewal or things like that, and to say, I want this person, and you can, who it is. Is it the producer? Is it the agent 1, agent 2? I can tell them that they need to do this certain task. They need to call the customer. They need to send something to the customer, whatever it is. So that'll be all automated. You just have to set it up once, and it's every time that happens, it'll be done. The same thing with automated communications, to be able to set up a communication to be able to go out when any one of those other triggers that I just mentioned happened. Then I can automatically send a notice out to a customer. Hey, your renewal is coming up. We're going to be here's a form that I want, a questionnaire I want you to answer and return to me, so that you don't physically have to do that yourself. And that'll be automated tasks and communications. And that's going to be one of the biggest things that we'll have done in a long, long time.
And what you're looking at right now is Task Center, and it's really the basis for those automated tasks. And really one of the big features of the Task Center itself that that came up earlier, there's two big things. One is today, your suspenses, you have to kind of type in your own, every one of them is a one-off. With tasks, you're going to be able to create templates of, these are common things that I have to do. So for example, I need to set up a task to 30 days prior to renewal. And yes, in the future we'll be able to trigger those, but typically these are the things I want done and during that call. And being able to create a template and say, you know what, I want the renewal template task, put it on this customer, done.
John,
go ahead.
One of the things that if you've got a new CSR or new account rep, and you want to make sure that they do all the right things, you can have this thing, all the processes, all the steps, all listed, and they'll be able to, and you'll be able to say, yeah, they'll be able to say, yeah, I did this, I did this, I did this, and so that nothing gets missed.
So Ken, if you go back a little bit in the video, there's one other
Sure.
thing in here that I'd like to highlight that's also a little different with tasks than it was with suspenses. And that's the concept, go back a little further, right there. It's the concept of you'll be able to set up a task, either a task can be done, but you could also be able to set up a task to say, you know what, I want to be able to know if when I completed the task, if I was successful or unsuccessful at that task. And then be able to run reports on how successful I was at completing. So for instance, maybe that 30-day prior renewal, I have tasks to go out and touch base with that customer 30 days prior to renewal to review their policy with them. So the question is you can look at it and say, okay, how successful was I at that? And was it successful or not? Because maybe your process, you've got to change your process or what you're doing with them, or maybe it's you're not giving enough time, or maybe you simply don't have enough time. But right now, that suspense comes and goes, and oops, I didn't get to it. So the policy renews, and I'll catch them on the next renewal. And right now, how many times are your agencies not doing things and they're not successful at them? You assume because the suspense went away that they actually did that thing, but you really don't know how successful they are, how successful they're being at those tasks. And that's something that this is going to be able to allow you to do.
I want to bring up, we got a question, a pre-question from Rebecca related to kind of this whole concept. And they had asked about, having to work a suspense report where you run the report, then you do a renewal, then you have to rerun the report, so it makes that go away. Task Center will make that a lot easier, right? Where you'll just have a list of things you need to do, and instead of rerunning that report, you'll be able to just cross it off, mark it successful, and move on to the next one.
Correct.
So I wanted to make sure that we highlighted that for Rebecca, because we understand the pain point of the processing the renewals, and it's definitely something we're keeping front of mind with this.
Yep, absolutely.
Stephen asked about tasks. Will they automatically send out emails? Well, there's tasks and there's communications. They'll both have triggers, and you can automatically set up tasks for someone to do something, or set up communications to automatically either email something out or to text something out. And again, you've got your templates to be able to do that.
Kind of foreshadowing something we're about to get to. No, I'll hold that for a second. Bogus, I'll get to your question momentarily. The next thing, we received this question from Christy that asked, do you have any plans / updates for the advanced reports and agency intelligence? And so I was wondering if Sean, if you could speak to, and even Matt, speak to what we're seeing with cloud reporting.
Yeah, so first off, there are, the whole reporting infrastructure is completely different in HawkSoft Cloud. Today on your local, whether you're HawkSoft Online or your local, it's literally opening up every client file one at a time, reading them, pulling up the data as needed, closing them, opening the next one, and it's doing this very, very quickly. But if you have a large agency with say 200,000 client files or even 50,000 client files on a slow network, those reports can take a little while to run. And what you're seeing on the slide right there is actually a sampling that we did on an agency, a mock agency with 250,000 client files that literally took 30 minutes to pull up their book of business report. Using the HawkSoft Cloud engine today that we have built out right now. Sorry, I'm not confused. The new HawkSoft Cloud reporting engine, it takes about 12 seconds to run that report. And so huge difference in speed. Yeah, Matt, is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, again, I want to emphasize that the focus that we have is on making sure everything is fast as possible. The idea being that the more time that you spend waiting for something, the less time you're spent doing something. So everything that we look at is based on the idea of how do we make it scale? How do we make it scale well when there could be tens of thousands of users in the system at the same time? And it's been an intense level of focus for us. And so our baseline is make it as fast as possible. And we're going to continue to emphasize that. Reporting infrastructure in particular is something that we're really giving a lot of TLC to. But part of the benefit of what we're doing now is by kind of reimagining the core aspects of HawkSoft CMS. It's being able to break that information apart. And again, the act of doing that just opens up all these opportunities, whether it's integration, whether it's new features and functionality, the speed at which you can get access to information, and then your ability to take that information and do whatever you want with it, even exporting it and then putting it into your own systems or for your own local reporting. So.
Yeah, and I want to kind of tie 2 or 3 thoughts together from the presentation so far. Sean did a great explanation of, we're looking at a hybrid system where there are going to be some browser-based functionality, and you saw with cloud accounting and the user setups and with automated tasks and communications, we're seeing more and more functionality in the browser. And one of the things that it's going to enable is, or potentially enable in the future, is kind of access to those functionalities outside of the management system for accounting professionals that might not need to be in CMS, or data analytics professionals that might not need to be in CMS to see the reports. So I wanted to tie those threads together for the audience. But now we're going to kind of transition away from questions related to HawkSoft Cloud. We might come back and talk on it at the end for the live Q&A because there are some questions in chat. Now we have this great question from Michelle out of Washington, and she asks, while lots of effort and teamwork is going into moving to the cloud, which is good, what is happening in other product development areas? And for that, I'm going to kind of bounce it back over to Sean to talk about Big Bang, Small Buck.
Big Bang, Small Buck. It's yeah, no, we are continuing to roll out enhancements to the existing product. In fact, we are launching version 5.2 is actually going to beta here in the next, I think it's the next week. And with it, there are some fairly large changes. And I'm probably jumping ahead in my notes here, Kenny, but that's just the way it is.
Okay.
So with that, you know, some of those changes are being able to today you can when you view a list of policies, you pull up a client and you have a list of policies, and you have 3 checkboxes. You've got, I want to see all my active ones, I want to see all my my inactive ones, or I want to see all my archived ones, and that's what you have. And with this new version, you'll be able to see all of your active ones or any ones that have canceled or expired within a threshold. So in other words, I want to see all of them that were active in the last, all the ones that are active and all the ones that were active in the last, say, 60 days. So that I'm not having to constantly, I don't have to view all of my canceled policies that have been canceled for 5-10 years. I don't have to see those. Even a year ago, I don't want to see those. I want to see the ones that have been canceled recently, and I want to see all my active ones. And so it's just going to benefit being able to focus what policies you're able to see. In addition, we've made some adjustments on the logs. How many of you guys like reading the logs in military time? No, I don't see a single hand. That's one of the other changes is actually changing the logs to being AM and PM. Oh, we had one person apparently raise their hand who was with the CIA. Is that what I saw? But anyway, the logs are actually going to be in normal AM PM time. And with that, we've got agencies that right now span time zones. And what happens when an agency spans time zones, you get some oddities with when things happened. And in fact, we see it at HawkSoft all the time because we now have employees in across 4 different time zones. And so we use CMS ourselves to track our interactions with you guys. And right now it's very odd to see log notes that look like they happened in one order, but the time says they happened in another order. And so that's one of the changes. That change is actually in preparation for moving to the cloud because of, as we move to the cloud, anyway, it's a data preparation for that as well. There's also been a huge amount of effort on Accord forms. We've actually gone through almost every Accord form or every major Accord form, hundreds of them, looking at how data flows into those Accord forms and have made a significant number of updates so that data is flowing into them more correctly. And so those are some of those. As we look to 5.3 and beyond, some of the other things that we are in the process of doing right now is improving even more certificate workflows. We know some agencies spend, they'll have dedicated people for simply sending out certificates. And we found some fairly small improvements that will save hours and hours of work in an agency for that. And so that's in 5.3, that'll be part of 5.3. In addition, there's some improvements to some life health policy permissions. So being able to lock down your life health policies so that you're only the users that should be able to see those log notes and those attachments. You can lock those things down for them. We've also made some significant improvements on workers' comp. That's actually a 5.2 item that I forgot about. But workers' comp, we've significantly made workers' comp, especially regarding downloads, where they come in and they look a lot better in the system. You have a lot more data for workers' comp.
Still in the thunder for my next slide.
Haha, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that gives me a great segue, talking about workers' comp. Michelle actually had two parts to her question, and she also asked if we are still doing cabs. And this gives us an opportunity to answer that question and also talk about how HawkSoft is engaging with our customers through really the amazing work done with Hug. So I'm going to ask, Sean, can you talk to us about customer advisory boards?
Yeah, so customer advisory boards are literally groups of HawkSoft customers that we bring together to bounce ideas off of and get feedback and impressions on things. We've actually had, you actually have a list of customer advisory boards there that we have going on right now?
I don't have them here with me, but I know that we've done accounting is a great example. There's been an accounting cab. There's a reporting cab. We had a security cab. Right now, active, we have tasks is a cab that's providing feedback to automated tasks and communications. Amelia, help me out here.
Yeah, you got it. There
okay.
was tasks, and then security is kind of comes and goes, and then accounting also is probably. So I think it's just those three right now.
So and really, we thrive on customer feedback, and it's been interesting. As HawkSoft has grown, that we want that feedback from you. We want to be able to know your pain points and how we can improve the software. And as we've grown in number of users, we've had to kind of change how we do that, because trying to interact with 20,000 users is becoming a lot harder to do. And so the idea of having these customer advisory boards where we bring smaller groups of agencies together to share their experience with whatever feature that might be. Say it's tasks. What are your pain points with tasks? What do you want to see with tasks? How can we make things better with tasks? What do you think about this workflow? And actually bounce ideas off of them, and it's a two-way street on those. I mean, they've been very, very beneficial for gathering that information. And really, we're grateful for the hard work of Celia Cross, who's a Hug board of directors member, for taking on and overseeing these cabs for Hug. And so just a shout out to her for all of her work on that. It's awesome to yeah, I guess enough said on that.
And Kelly Endicott in chat asked, how do people get involved in cabs? Look out for communication from Hug for when cab spots are available. It's a really important point to note that HawkSoft does not oversee or manage cabs. We go to you for feedback, but it's a user managed organization to make sure that your voice remains central and prominent in the process, instead of us kind of handpicking the people that we know will give us the answer we want.
And Kenny, I'll just add to that real quick. We put out an application about a year ago for agents to become cab members, and we had 90 applicants. And so we've been working through, we've probably had 50% of those already be on a cab in the last year, or are on a cab right now. So we've kind of worked through those initially, and then we may reopen up that application. It's a live application; anybody could apply, and we're planning to post that onto the Hug website soon. But certainly, we're getting through those 90 applicants first for round one, if you will.
Yeah. So then we're also doing some other exciting things with Hug, and so I'm going to pass this over to Paul Hawkins to first talk about the new customer onboarding experiment.
I have been always in talking to agents, go out to their offices, and because can't do that this year, I missed that so much, but going out and finding out that they don't know what they don't know. And we find that we give them so much information. I mean, we shoot it out at them with a cannon when they're first on, when they're first there. And in fact, one of our new customers is online, and I don't remember the name. I saw the question a while back on the chat. And we just inundate them with information, and there's no way that you're going to be able to keep it all. So what we've done is we've changed our onboarding processing so that we're going to give you the need to know up front, and then we're going to come back to you come back to the new agent a little bit later and talk with you and get your feelings and where you're missing, and then have actually a plan of giving you the nice to know, and then we're going to give it to you again in another 6 months. We're going to talk to you again and say, hey, here's some other good stuff, and now we want to really work with you again, and where are you struggling and how can we help? And so we're working on that on the new customer onboarding is a big thing for us. Plus, we're working with the Hug to do some mentoring and things like that, to be able to, so that you can actually talk to agents that are similar to you, and to be able to get help from an agent also.
Yeah. And in that same kind of a similar vein, we've also introduced customer success it's always been an aspect of HawkSoft, but it's now a formal department and position. So Paul, would you like to talk a bit about that?
Noemi was a wonderful employee of ours, and she has worked from, she started off in customer service, went as a team lead in customer service, has been in the sales team, and now we've created a new position, and she's actually reaching out to agencies that are strategic agencies or strategic in the thinking that they have needs of things that we're wanting to work on, and then also working with agencies that leave us and they're leaving, and why are they leaving? And we want to know why. We want to know why, so that we can help you guys with the problems and pain points that you have. And she is doing just such a fabulous job. In fact, the certificate changes that Sean just mentioned in the upcoming version all came through that process in finding out from the agents where their pain point was on certificates and how we can make that better.
Yeah.
I believe the workers' comp came through that as well.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. I did want to give a shout out to Dirk Ziegler, who is heading up that new customer onboarding. I know he's on the call, and it's just we get such great opportunities to work with Hug, and I'm spoiled as the Hug liaison to work with them all the time. You're going to see an email on the screen. I need everybody to ignore it because we didn't have time to set it up. But in the future, HawkSoft will have an email address for people to reach directly out to Noemi, our customer success manager, and give Noemi feedback about what your pain points are in the system. It's not live yet, so please ignore this email, and hopefully someone watching the recording in the future, you can utilize this email because it should be set up by then, and it will be success@hawksoft.com. But we're going to move on to the next the next section of our questions, and we're going to shift away from discussing functionality, and with kind of the time remaining, we're going to talk more about HawkSoft's future, how independent agents can compete with direct writers, and how to navigate the growing InsurTech world. And we have this really great question from Randy, and the key part of his question is there on the slide, but I'm going to read the full thing that he wrote to us. What perpetuation plan does HawkSoft have? The reason I ask is we don't want this platform to be sold off to another competitor at some point in the future, but rather to keep the same principles from the founders as an agency management system founded by agents and supported by agency influence. And so I'm going to pass this over to Paul.
Hey, I'm telling you. In fact, I think I've got one in my email box right now that just came in. I get emails every day of people either wanting to invest in us and take part of us or buy us, and I'm going like I just delete because I don't want to throw our wife's work away and throw you guys under the bus. I love what we're doing. I love this industry. This is the best industry I think I could ever work in. And I want to support you guys, and I want to continue to do it. I'm past retirement, but I ain't quitting. And as far as the succession plan, my son and my son-in-law are my equal partners. I've got a granddaughter or a granddaughter-in-law that's working in the company right now. My two grandsons have worked in the company, and they're in school. I suspect they'll be back. We are a family business, and I love the family that we are a family business in a family-orientated industry that protects the American family and American businesses. I am so proud of you guys, of what you do, and how you work to protect other people and their assets and their families. And we will not give up on that. We're not going away.
You know, I was told at one point that by my grandma that at some point I have to have a talk with my parents when I have to take the car keys away from them. And I think Paul's gonna be that same way, where someday I'm gonna have to pull him aside and say, Paul, I'm not sure you can come into the office anymore. We're a long ways away from that.
I think eventually we'll just make sure that he takes a vacation. You know?
Right. Exactly.
And you know, I have to say, I've been with HawkSoft for 5 years. Paul has always given the same answer. As a arrogant addition to the company, in product support, I asked this almost like same question when every new employee meets the board at HawkSoft. And I asked this question because I wanted to find a home for a long time, and the answer hasn't changed. So I just want people to know that it's one that you can trust.
And I'm the second generation of that. And I iterate the exact same thing. I'm loving what we're doing, and we're not going anywhere. We are here for you, and we'll continue to be here for you the way we are, with the founding principles that we've had and will continue to have. Can I speak to this a little bit as well? I don't know how many know this, but every new employee that starts a HawkSoft, we actually bring the executive team in a meeting with every new employee. And oftentimes it's a group of employees, but regardless, it's the whole executive team meets with every new employee, and we go through what our core values at HawkSoft are, and instill in them how we want them to interact with our customers, with our employees, other employees, with how we want them to act. And we feel very strongly about those core values, and that's not going away. And that's something that, as I look at a lot of the companies that have been purchased by big money, those are the first things that seem to go, are those core values, because it's no longer about the core values, it's about money. And that's something that does not drive our decision making at HawkSoft. Money does not drive. In fact, it drives some of our accounting people sometimes a little crazy, because we're like, you know what, the money will take care of itself. This is the right thing to do. And it drives them crazy. But that's our mindset. Our mindset is we're not driven by money. We enjoy doing what we're doing, and we feel very strongly about those core values.
We do the right thing and let the bottom line take care of itself.
Yep.
And if I may, this is Jerry Fox, someone who's been with the company a little over a year, been in the industry since the earth cooled, as Claudia and Pat might attest to. Been through running my own business, my own agency, corporate America. This organization is unlike anything I've ever seen. It lives, breathes its core values. And I can't tell you how happy I am to be here. It is amazing.
Thank you, Jerry.
By the way, thank you, Randy, good friend Randy, for that question. And Randy, I still remember my brother and I being in your office, and I missed that. And I still remember, you might remember the word kerching. It's a private joke between Randy and I.
We have another question from a longtime friend of HawkSoft and an accomplished guitarist, Joe Jimenez. He asks, the independent agency channel continues to be under attack by direct-to-consumer carriers with massive advertising budgets, and even our own carriers with multiple distribution channels, not to mention constant commission reductions. Clearly, things are very different today than they were 20 years ago. Knowing what you know now, what practical advice would you give independent agents who, in spite of all the tools available, still find it hard to grow our book of business? And thank you for having the best interests of IAs at heart.
Joe, thank you. Another good friend that I've been in his office many times, and I love that, and I can't wait to do it again. We love the independent agency channel, and I started off in the captive side. Didn't spend much time there, and got really sick of it because I only had one product. And but against, you get the online ones and stuff. You guys have some advantages, two big advantages that I want to talk about. You had, number one, you have relationships that the other guys, they can't have. The Geicos of the world. I mean, you're going to be talking to somebody different every time the customer is. And then the other number two one is choice. You offer choice to yours, and that's one of the reasons that we do what we do, because each of you are independent, and we want to give you choice of the things that you want to do, and that's why we're doing so much with the different API stuff that we're doing. You have to understand that competitive edge that you have in those relationships. You have to understand your customers. How does that customer want to develop those relationships? How do you build a relationship with the customer that you want to do business with, and what are their needs? And so I want to choose my carriers by the needs that my customers have. You need to spend time on that. I remember a good friend of ours, Mike Stromso, always said, you got to spend as much time on your business as you do in your business. And I think you understand the difference in that. You have to study your customers. You have to study your markets. You have to know what's going on in order to build those relationships. You have to be involved in your community. And my dear friend Claudia, I see here's her pictures right in front of me here. And she's one of those that really understands her community and the relationships within that community. She just got done doing some great stuff up in her community that just really pulled her community together. And to be able to understand how to build those relationships is very, very important. And how to foster the deeper trust. They need to trust you. So now my question is, how does tech enter into this? Okay, tech, it isn't where the relationship starts, but tech is the place where you can foster those relationships and support those relationships and the communication that you need to have with them. Now we've had another question from somebody else, and I'll let you talk about that, Kenny.
Yeah. Do you mean the next slide for the question, or was it in chat?
Yeah, it was on the next question.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, we have a question from Vice President of the Hug Board, Councilman at Large, Ice Cream Parlor proprietor Dan Sage. He asks, as you know, agencies are inundated with InsurTech companies daily. CRM programs, marketing, e-signature, X-Dates, you name it, we are hit on a daily basis with the newest, shiniest toy. I've been told I have shiny object syndrome and FOMO, fear of missing out on the latest, greatest app that will quadruple my agency's income overnight. How is HawkSoft handling the current InsurTech environment, and what advice would you give us agents on how best to navigate the ever-expanding field of InsurTech?
Okay, and going back to, I think it was part of Joe's question on commissions, and the commissions are dropping all the time. And so how do I do that? How do I use the InsurTech, the technologies, the new technologies that are coming out today, and even some of our technologies we want to automate certain things. We want to automate the mundane things so that you guys can have more time to do the relationships. That's the key to technology. Yes, you want to be able to use them for communications, but don't lose yourself to those communications. Don't use somebody else's communications. You have to be you. You have to sell who you are to your customers. There's a thing in a couple years ago in one of the big surveys that I think it was the Big I did. I think it was Big I, and they said, well, we see that customers are coming back to the independent agent because they like to buy from the people that they know their story, that they like their story. And so know your story. You know, I know a lot of you know my story. You know my story. I'm a woodworker. I make all my employees that when they were in the office had a handmade desk by me. You know, there's things about our story as HawkSoft, where we were, how we were founded, and people like those. They connect to those things. Every one of you have a story to make that connection, and you need to use the technology to do that. You have to understand who you are, where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years from now, what kind of customers you want to bring to you. And if you can get that understanding and then match up the technology with what you're trying to do. In fact, Kenny mentioned here in one of these, the technology, you know, you get inundated with technology. They're selling it to you. They're trying to sell you. They're trying to get you to jump on. And that shiny object that Dan was looking for, you know, and sometimes we go like, wait a minute, you know, it's just a shiny object, and it's just, we've got to understand where it actually is, how it's actually going to help me build that relationship of trust to my customers.
I think, Paul, on that point, you know, they always talk about that you should never outsource your most valuable asset. Those valuable assets are things that you need to hold, that you need to have control over. And when you try outsourcing relationships to technology, you've lost the game already. When you use technology to augment and to help build those relationships, that's when you win. And so you just have to be very careful as you look at these InsureTechs, which ones are going to help you along that process to augment and grow those relationships, not replace you in those relationships.
Yeah, and you again, to restate what I said before in what Sean just said, is that you have to be part of that. You have to be the message. I know a lot of these guys build, and there's certain instances that I agree that you can use their what they've written for you, but if you write it in a simple, easy statement that is going to go a lot farther than a bunch of fancy graphics on a screen.
Yeah.
And if I may, again, I may be overstepping my bounds here, but the slide that's up, the hard part is the bones. You know, it's always, if the bones are good, the hard work starts with defining who you want to be. Once you've figured that out, finding the right InsureTech isn't that hard.
You know, and to Jerry, to that point, I think sometimes we have yes syndrome. We want to say yes to everything and everybody. And I am a classic example of this. I like to please people, and Rashang, our director of marketing, has really driven this home. We have to celebrate not only our when we say yes, but also what we say no to, because everything comes at an opportunity cost. And sometimes you've got to say no to something that looks like that looks like it could be a great opportunity, but is it going to distract from your main goal of your agency? And sometimes we have to celebrate those and say, you know what, I'm saying no to that because it is a distraction, and it's going to distract me from the main goal of what I'm trying to accomplish.
One of the other
Excellent.
points here that Kenny makes on the screen here, does this or part of the functionality already exist in my management system? And a lot of people want to do automated communications, and I find that the people that automate before they've done it manually don't understand it well enough to actually automate it properly. And you know, we have mass email, and if you haven't tried mass email, automated communications might not work for you as well because you don't have the understanding of it. I really would like you guys to understand. And then talk to us. Call customer service and ask, you guys do this? I mean, we've had so many people leave us because they left us because somebody else came up with a shiny object and they didn't even bother to ask that and find out that we already had that in the system.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to note, I will take off my Hug Liaison hat and put on my partner integration hat for a second. You can see everyone we currently integrate at our website, hawksoft.com/partners. And if there's not somebody on there that you think we should be integrating with, please send an email to opportunities@hawksoft.com. That hits myself and Paul Hawkins. We evaluate every incoming opportunity, have a discussion, and do our best to make sure that any service out there that's making agencies successful, we will integrate with. What I would like to do is now, we have a few questions. We're close to the end of time. There is one big question that I want to ask, and it's been asked by a few people. Timing of the release of HawkSoft 6. This is where being remote is great. Because while I know that Sean knows where I live, I think I have a head start to escape. So what are we looking at time-wise for HawkSoft 6?
Can you turn off the recording, first of all? Just kidding.
Yeah, and Sean, let me go outside Kenny's house first so that he can't run
You know, to quote a very famous movie, and I hate to put it this way, but I'm going to, I believe it was Mr. Incredible, as they're flying on the airplane, says, we'll get there when we get there. Our hope is to have a complete demonstrable version by end of year this year. Now, that does not mean that we're going to be able to move you guys onto it at the end of the year this year, but we should have something that's complete that we can demonstrate in its entirety by end of year this year. That's the goal. And that's as far as I'm going to say.
Okay. And one thing I will note, Sean pointed out, HawkSoft is going to launch what we internally are calling the Transparency Project to be very public about our intentions around HawkSoft 6. So please be assured that we are not going to hide the milestones and the projections from everybody. It's going to be out and in the public and very visible, probably by the middle of this year. I do want to make sure that I ask this great question from Dina C. I'm going to say Dina C because I suck at Italian and I don't want to butcher your last name. As a new agency, 3 weeks live, what is one piece of advice you would give us while using the system?
I was going to talk to that when I forgot about it. You know, one of the things that you just got to keep digging in. You got to keep digging in, and you got to keep watching those training videos. You got to ask questions. You've got to, and then on a weekly, you have staff meetings. If you, and this advice goes for old agencies, not just new agencies. But if you have staff meetings, get one of your people to find out about something that you want to know about. And as you do that, and you have that staff person do that, your CSR, your new CSR, have them study it and then bring it to the rest. Because quite frankly, if you're the owner, they don't want to listen to you. You've been talking all the time and blah, 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 blah. Talk to that, have that CSR, give that training to the rest of your staff. Do that every staff meeting. And then all of a sudden you're going to realize that every one of your staff members, they're all the experts. You've trained up the people because they're doing the training. They learn more by training than they do by just listening. And that is, I find, in the people, the agencies that have done that, come back to me and say, Paul, that was the most fantastic idea that I've had. That's the great way to do it. And so that's the one big piece of advice that I would give you.
The other thing you'll find is that they will come to trust you more and feel more part of your agency because they're more heavily invested in the agency because they have spent that time. It works on so many different facets, that concept.
I have one more question that I feel is very important. I do want to be respectful of time, so if we can give us a quick answer to this question, then we'll move on to our final thought and close this out. Daniel B asked, a lot of systems that are being updated, the aesthetic and the end user experience is being left out. How is HawkSoft 6 making the process flow well?
You know, to iterate what Matt even talked about earlier, everything we build is around user workflows, and that's actually one of my major tasks in the company is to ensure that user workflows are maintained, that they're intuitive, that they make sense. And my team, I think, drives them a little crazy because everyone, you know, it's often where I'll go, guys, that doesn't make any sense. That's going to make it very difficult for the end user.
Yeah, but it's the easier way to program it, Sean.
Yeah, but too bad. We're going to do a little more work to make it a little more make it easier to use, and that's something that I feel very strongly about is that user workflow. So that's the short answer. Is that we spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah, and I'll note one of the kind of overarching directives of the accounting project is to minimize how much retraining is going to be necessary. It should still feel like HawkSoft accounting, even though we're trying to simplify it and make it easier and move it to the web. It's funny because HawkSoft has these sprint reviews, and we'll get in there and it's half the company and they're kind of critiquing development. And a lot of the times it's, hey, that doesn't work like it used to. That's not okay. Drives developers nuts, but it is something where we're always advocating for the workflows for the customer. And I think that's not necessarily unique to HawkSoft, but it definitely makes us stand out in this industry.
Well, I think the other thing about this is the cabs, because we are talking to the agents of what their needs are and how they want it to work. And so we are involving the agencies in this process.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off of that. One of the things that I really emphasize, I came from the banking industry and started out many decades ago where everything was old green screens and terminal emulators, but the productivity was always there for the users of the system, for the staff. And then we saw this transition as the internet took off towards a lot of web-based experience, but we lost productivity and efficiency. And then you had to do so many different things to get someplace, and it was just clunky, and it was a really painful journey to kind of go through. And it's one of the things that the insurance industry has been moving through for the last 10, 15 years. And our commitment is to ensure that we're able to stay true to that. And again, not just usability, but accessibility as well. So we're going to have a lot of emphasis in the coming years to being able to iterate quickly and making sure that we just streamline and simplify things. We're also trying to capture a lot of metrics and data analytics about usage so that we can give feedback as to whether or not something is working well or not. We're moving as a company to be more of a data-driven company. That data is really more about what is working and not working for you, and making sure that we can get the things in place to get feedback for that in real time.
Excellent. So with that, we're going to move on to our final thought. I'm just going to pass it over to Paul and Sean.
Sean, you want to go start?
Sure. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for spending the last hour and a half with us. And thank you for your feedback. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for being part of the HawkSoft family. It means the world to us to be part of you, and for the trust that you guys put in us. We don't take that lightly, and just grateful, just thankful.
I am so thankful for all the wonderful people that the good Lord has surrounded me with in this industry. Our HawkSoft family, our employees, our customers, the wonderful other vendors that I work with. It's a great group of people, and I'm so thankful to be here, to be with you. And that's the reason it's so fun. That's the reason I'd never want to give this up. Sean's going to have to kick me out of the office at some point, I know, but he's going to have a hard time doing it. So.
Excellent.
Awesome.
So I'm just going to, thank everybody, and I'm going to pass it back to Amelia for some closing words from Hug.
Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. We really appreciate your time away from your work and families. And special thanks to Paul and Sean and Kenny and Matt and everybody who participated in today's session. We appreciate you. And this closes this session, and we hope to see you in person, hopefully in October. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.